My parents are upset with me for not ignoring my older brother's predatory behavior towards my girlfriend. For some context, my brother is 32, has never held a job, dropped out of community college after 2 semesters due to not completing assignments, and has lived with my parents his entire life. He spends his days sleeping and his nights playing video games and watching porn. Both my brother and I, 27M, are diagnosed autistic and exhibit similar symptoms, but I've been working since I was 17, got my driver's license at 17, bought my first car at 24, and started college in 2019. My parents constantly use my brother's autism to excuse his behavior, despite us both being on the spectrum. In November 2020, I moved back in with my parents after leaving an abusive relationship and due to chronic health issues. I met my current girlfriend, 23F, in mid-2021, and in early 2022, due to extenuating circumstances, my family agreed to let her live with us. My brother was immediately pleased but soon behaved inappropriately. He started by creepily staring whenever my girlfriend and I kissed, then followed her into the bathroom whenever she went to shower, until he realized she always locked the door because of him. The breaking point was when he tried to enter our bedroom uninvited at 3 a.m. while we were asleep. Every time he acted inappropriately, we informed my parents, but they merely made excuses for him because he's autistic and had brief conversations with him, which didn't stop his behavior. After the bedroom incident, they kicked my girlfriend out, making her temporarily homeless because she had a PTSD panic attack as my brother made her feel unsafe. As a result, my girlfriend and I got an apartment together, and I moved out because I didn't want to live with my brother, was upset about how my girlfriend was treated, and refused to break up with her as my parents wanted. I had a calm discussion with my parents, explaining why I was moving out. I acknowledged it was their house and they had the right to make rules, but I wasn't going to live where my girlfriend wasn't welcome and where my brother's behavior was condoned. Initially, they told me they loved me, apologized for making me feel that way, wanted me to keep a house key, and assured me I was always welcome and could move back if needed. Several days later, I went to pick up more belongings only to find they had changed the locks. Later that week, they told me they were angry for being ungrateful, claiming I said I hated them and called them bad parents, none of which I had said. They informed me they didn't want to speak to me for a week as they needed time to process and thought I should feel what it was like to be cut out of the family. I respected their wishes, and later, my parents agreed to family therapy, but they backed out because they wanted it over a 3-way video call, which my therapist's website couldn't accommodate. I then offered to attend therapy with a therapist of their choice who could manage a 3-way call, but that has yet to happen. That Sunday, they invited me for dinner, which I thought went well, but afterward, they continued to ignore my calls and left my texts unread. Eventually, they contacted me, asking me to stop using their house as storage and to pick up my things, despite earlier asking me to stay away for a week. My girlfriend and I went to collect the rest of our belongings, which was awkward but quick. Later that day, I received a text from my mom wishing me luck at college, yet my parents still won't discuss the issues that led to my moving out or visit our new apartment, despite being invited, because I still love them and want a relationship, as their behavior has been highly uncharacteristic. Understandably, my girlfriend isn't fond of them but supports my relationship with them for my mental well-being. Has anyone else experienced a similar situation? How did you handle it? Update. I've been working through some things in therapy and had a bit of an epiphany. For years, I thought my parents were doing me a favor by letting me live with them, but things started to unravel the more I thought about it and talked to my therapist. I'm currently 27. But I didn't start living on my own until I was 22. I always thought I was a failure or a late bloomer, but then I remembered I tried moving out on my own when I was 20. I found a friend who was willing to be my roommate at the time, and we were apartment hunting together. Eventually, I told my parents I wanted to move out. My mom told me they wouldn't be able to afford the rent for their apartment if I wasn't there to pitch in, and my dad asked me, "How are you going to find a roommate? You can't even find someone to hang out with you on your birthday." When I lived with them, I didn't give them all my money from work, but I could never save more than $500 because they would inevitably fall behind on some bill, and I would have to help. Many times, I didn't have the money to help, so it was normal for me to sell my things at a pawn shop to make ends meet, which was never asked of my older brother. I only stopped contributing to my parents' finances once we were homeless in 2018 and reconnected with my extended family, who let me couch surf. They told my parents they thought it was weird how much money I gave them. During the 2 years my parents lived in New York and I lived alone in Texas, I was actually thriving, despite my abusive ex and chronic health issues. I lost 120 pounds, made the honor roll at college, and bought a car. I was doing really well. Later, my mother admitted to me she was angry and resentful toward me for getting my first job at 17 because the government took away my disability money that she was managing. I feel like that's one reason my older brother is still treated as the golden child. He still gets disability that my mom manages 100% and is fairly obedient to her. It just made me think, wow. Sorry I'm such a disappointment because I wasn't an obedient little disability check for you and I wanted a life of my own. I was also sexually abused by our neighbor's teenage son in first grade. When I asked my mom why she wasn't more protective of me, she said, "I was so concerned with making sure that never happened to your brother that it never occurred to me it could happen to you." I used to think my parents were very moral and ethical people, but the more therapy I go through, the more I notice patterns. For example, my mom was always doing research on narcissists and claiming all my grandparents were narcissists, which is why we went no contact with them for over a decade. As a kid, I believed her, but now I realize a classic narcissist tactic is to isolate people from others who can help them. I even remember as a freshman in high school, my mom terrified me by convincing me my grandfather had hired private investigators to stalk us, which knowing my grandfather now as an adult is something he would never do. Sorry for the rant, but I needed to get this out somewhere. Update 2. Since that incident, my girlfriend and I have gotten an apartment together, and things have been going well. My parents have been very low contact because they're upset I didn't break up with my girlfriend and excuse my brother's creepy behavior. Throughout the situation, my grandfather has been nothing short of a rock for me. He and my step-grandmother have offered me advice, helped me get career counseling services, want to assist with my tuition now that I'm back in college, and have even offered to buy plane tickets for both my girlfriend and me to fly cross-country to spend Thanksgiving with them and introduce my girlfriend to them. He's been very clear that he sides with me in the disagreement with my parents because he doesn't agree with my brother's behavior. He's also pointed out the obvious, which my parents because he doesn't agree with my brother's behavior and has stated the obvious that my parents don't seem to grasp, which is that I'm a grown man and can date who I want and live my life as I see fit. I feel really lucky to have him around, but at the same time I'm still incredibly frustrated with my parents. I have a large extended family and I've heard through the grapevine that my parents want me to move back with them, but on their terms and they're going low contact with me to teach me a lesson, and all I can think is what TF kind of delusional fairy tale world do they live in where I would abandon a healthy relationship with my GF and having my own place to move back in with them just to be the scapegoat for all of my brother's BS?